This episode has been brought to you by JustNForm.com. If you're tired of being censored, tired of having your data stolen and sold, go to JustNForm.com, a social media site where all voices are welcome.
What's going on, everybody? I am here with Terry Bain from Voices, and we're going to discuss just this. I don't know if you want to call it revisionist history.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good way to call it.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
It's funny because even though I'm like a dead man's history to the NBA or sports, but it's kind of like when a famous basketball player retires, or even a famous athlete in other sports, but specifically basketball, because it's just the longevity of their careers. I remember back in the days, it's a Kobe LeBron conversation always happening. And now it's LeBron Jordan, but people forgot that it had always been Kobe LeBron before Kobe retired. And people forgot that it was actually considered a joke to ever think that LeBron could ever measure up to Kobe Bryant. But when Kobe retired and LeBron got to, create his own narrative, all of a sudden it was, Kobe and Michael Jordan were never in the same conversation. It was never Kobe versus Mike. It was Kobe versus Tim Duncan. And it's like, well, you can literally go back not even 4 years, 5 years, and see that that's not the case. And in politics, because there's a lot of politics in sports as well, because wherever, follow the money, right? Wherever there's money, there's politics. So it's the same thing in politics. When people die, because they had a certain title by their name, because they played for a certain team for an extended period of time, when they leave the game, in John McCain's case, leaving permanently, all of a sudden we tend to forget what they've done or what they haven't done. And I feel like that's the case for John McCain. What do you think, Terry?
I want to touch real briefly and unpack what you said about revisionist history, because a book that they can find it online, and I really suggest they Google it up or search engine it up. Perpetual
Google here.
Oh, okay. That's a good point. I hear you. Too dangerous. Although sometimes you can't find the results if you go to anywhere but Google, strangely enough.
Yeah, sometimes.
So use it as a last result, but the last resort. Anyway, perpetual war for perpetual peace is talking about revisionist history. And it's really time that people understand what you think you know about World War II. Mm-hmm. Is, for the most part, it's a fairy tale. And that's a big part of the trouble we're running into with the endless wars right now, is you'll hear people say, well, if there was a good war, put that in quotes, then World War II. Well, when you look at this perpetual war for perpetual peace, it is talking about how one of America's premier historians, Dr. Beard, and again, search engine, they can find it, they were wiped out. This entire school of history has been wiped out, knocked off the record as much as possible.
Very similar to what happened to the Library of Alexandria.
Exactly.
And you don't know what the Library of Alexandria is, you want to get woke, do some research. It touches everything from like regional history of leadership, and even spiritual history that is seen as taboo to discuss now amongst I guess liberals or atheists, but these things were considered at one point legitimate fact, and this is by scientists and historians alike. So whenever history gets wiped out in a wide fashion like that, and revised according to the narrative that they want, it's always wise to go back and look it up.
And sometimes you have to revise it to get rid of the lies that were put in the first place, which is the case for perpetual war for perpetual peace.
Which is what we're doing right now, actually.
I hope so. And we've got a lot to unpack there, and hopefully we can do a better job somewhere up the line of trying to just focus on it, because it's key. It's really key that people understand.
So you're
being lied to.
What do you feel about just the constant outpouring of John Lewis's was my favorite thus far. John McCain was a warrior for peace.
I can say with a clear conscience, rest in peace, John McCain, because I don't think peace and John McCain are going to be two topics that fit together a whole lot. Other than that,
kind of like bumped. They're polarizing.
Yeah, that would be the way I see it.
It's like what you said yesterday. He's like, I hope he rests in peace because he damn sure didn't do it. He didn't live in peace, so he has to get peace somewhere, right? Probably not.
Well, I was trying to avoid saying that on the air because I'm really trying to stay in the role of a reporter instead of an editorialist. And yeah, if we weren't on the air, yeah, somebody else say it, please. But I'm trying to. I thank you.
I mean, it's a fact. The fact of the matter is, people, John McCain, he was not a good person. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, because he messed up. You know, some people make missteps. I understand missteps. It is an entirely different thing than what we're seeing right now. The New York Times did a fantastic job reporting on this in 2015 about how John McCain was instrumental in removing Apache land and giving it to Rio Tinto, which was a private corporation that donated to John McCain's campaign. And they were literally asserting that, like, who said the land was sacred? This is Apache sacred, holy land. Their rebuttal was, who said the land was sacred? Now, if you don't know about the Rock of Gibraltar, if you don't know about Jerusalem, Republicans are all about protecting certain holy lands for certain types of people.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to Native Americans, all of a sudden, those Native Americans are rendered invisible when the dollar signs become more visible, if you catch my drift. So,
really quickly, let's kind of touch on what we're talking about here, that the Rio Tinto is a Rothschild, primary Rothschild holding. Again, use a search engine, look it up. So Rio Tinto, particularly look up Rio Tinto on their wonderful record throughout history. So Rio Tinto wanted the copper underneath this Apache Holy Land. And they took it. They had tried and tried and tried. They couldn't get enough support on the congressional bills to get it.
Oh, you froze on me. Oh, no. Are you back?
Sorry. Yeah, I just had a junk call for one of the 12,000 junk calls I get every day. Sorry about that.
No, I thought it was me.
Where were we? Rio Tinto.
Yeah, you said the Rio Tinto was
Rothschild holding, primary holdings. Yeah,
and that they've been trying for years.
There we go. During the dark of the night, they couldn't get it the right way with votes. So what they did was stepped in and had John McCain steal it for them. To make a long story short, and editorializing, I'm sorry, I've stepped out of my role as an objective reporter again. But in my opinion, that's what they did.
Oh no, you got to call a spade a spade. That's part of reporting now. You can't, we can't be apathetically objective. You can still.
I agree.
And call a spade nowadays. You have to.
Well, I'm not really comfortable with it, but I'm trying to learn.
Older style reporters, y'all definitely have a different, and it could be because I grew up in the age of outrage.
Yes.
Being a millennial.
You've been lied to your entire lives.
Exactly. I was having a conversation last night with somebody saying, like, it's almost like you can learn everything you need to learn by middle school. And by high school, you should be learning how to unpack everything you've learned, figure out what's a lie and what's not a lie, and to navigate. And I always tell people it is important to learn the wrong history if you're conscious of what you're like, if you're conscious that it's not correct. And the reason why is because, well, it's like trying to go to North Korea and then screaming in English, you all are not free, you all are not free. And they're going to look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? We have no idea what you're saying. You have to be able to speak the language to navigate the system and convince the world that you are indeed, that they're not free, because we're not, right? We're effectively an oligarchy just in this country. And if we're an oligarchy, the rest of the world is. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
We've been colonized. And once again, Rio Tinto's primary holdings is for Rothschild. That's who's colonizing us. It's not just America. America tends to take the heat, and rightly so. Well, we're not running the policy here. We're doing what our colonizers are telling us, which is Rothschilds. And that goes all the way.
Colonizers. You're right. And even Great Britain was essentially a colony.
Yes.
It became a colony once the Rothschilds bought it and started bankrolling all the wars in the area.
Look up City of London sometime. And of course, there'll be some crud in there. But wade through it, use your own judgment and figure out which parts of it are true and which aren't. Use the sources. That's the WikiLeaks approach. You said Library of Alexandria,
and by
and
the
a lot of.
I just want to go ahead and clarify. So in the New York Times article, people, it says that the giveaway language was slipped in because I just wanted for you to be able to use it for your own. 'Cause I know that a lot of you all watch the show and then obviously use these in your arguments and in your discussions going forward, which I love, by the way. It's awesome.
Yes, that's awesome.
But it says this time the giveaway language was slipped onto the defense bill by
very good
John McCain and Blake, both from Arizona, in the 11th hour, and the tactic was successful only because, like most last-minute writers, it bypassed public scrutiny. In other words, you were kept out of the discussion. The people of Arizona were kept out of the discussion, and the Apaches were once again rendered, or just the Native American people in general, once again rendered invisible with their own. I just can't imagine walking into some Second Amendment right wing nut in Texas and saying, "Hey, give me your land, please." They will literally put a bullet in the back of your head if you considered it.
The Apaches tried, but we kind of had them outnumbered. So
yeah. I mean, well, it was what was it? So the Cherokee tribes in Southeast, U.S. actually did everything correctly. I mean, people don't know that they actually established their own constitution. They established their own government. They did everything that the United States said they needed to do in order to maintain their land. And what did Action Jackson do? Damn all that. No, it was Johnson. It was Andrew Johnson, right? It was Andrew Johnson. Action Jackson was not good either, but
Jackson was in there on it. I think even one of the best presidents to me, Thomas Jefferson. He was when you see the way he perceived the world at that time, and him talking about either blacks or Indians, it's horrifying. And this is one of our
victims of their time is what I would say. I'm a very altruistic person, and I'm objective, and I'm not naive to what it like to be a leader at that point. To say, well, why are we treating Blacks and Native Americans like that? Should we really be putting, the expansion of a country over the lives of these people? There was no way. There was literally, maybe after, how it is they always retroactively say, that was probably a little bit cruel, right? But during that time, that's why I always laugh whenever people say, well, you can't vote for this president because he's racist. I mean, not that I voted for Trump, but it's like, so now we're drawing the line at racism, and it's only the kind that comes out in pretty words that are not so pretty, but not the legitimate kind that comes out in policies like these. That's when we vote. You know what I'm saying? Why don't we call it what it is? Whenever John Lewis is like, oh, he's a warrior for peace. Even Bernie Sanders, who disappointed me by trying to celebrate John McCain and calling him his friend. Bernie Sanders, you went to Standing Rock. You consider yourself a friend of the Native American people.
Yes.
And for the most part, you have been that. But to blatantly ignore things like this policy is nothing short of racist. It is nothing. Well, let's not even call it racist. We'll call it prejudice. We'll call it discriminatory. We don't even have
or colonial. Let's call it also what it's always historically been. It's colonial.
And once again, colonialism has an element of racism too.
Oh, yeah. So it's so convenient.
Once again, if this was in Jerusalem, we wouldn't be touching it. But because
and hopefully that changes over time too.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. And I think I think that whole situation is actually solving itself by accident because evolution, both physically and intellectually and culturally, is a thing. And because of the limited amount of land Israel has, and the pushback that they're getting from their own citizens, despite the fact that people don't often see it in the States because it doesn't get televised, and that's by design, by the way.
Information control.
They'll tell you if you go to Tel Aviv, it isn't exactly like everybody is a Netanyahu. In fact, most of them are not. Most of them leave because they are tired of seeing the way Palestinians are treated. They're tired of their friends going into the military, being put in harm's way, because Palestinians are pissed, and rightfully so, and have to defend their land. So people situations often resolve themselves because self-interest end up doing people in, right?
As the Declaration said, that if you let it go long enough, it'll just keep a long train of abuse and usurpations. It's just evils will become no longer sufferable at some point. And that's what we're looking for.
People have nothing to lose.
No, that's exactly. And to me, that is the millennial generation. Unlike the baby boom generation, which is me. I'm so proud. It's no longer even some kind of a fantasy. This is sufferable. If we do not change things, the millennials have nothing. There is no future.
Yep.
We cannot have endless wars.
I'm scared to have kids, people, like legitimately. Because
I hate to hear that. I don't have many regrets in life at my age of 61, but not having kids is one of them. So please, you get to a certain age, you don't get that choice anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I know I'll have a child eventually, but I have to do my part.
You'd be a great dad. I really do hope you get there.
I'll definitely have a kid eventually. But like I said, before I invest my time, and it's not just myself, by the way. I feel like everybody in this world, not everybody feels as strongly about it as I do, but I feel like because of where we're at, we have a responsibility to this earth and to the future of our children to do our part as individuals. Take 5, 6, even 10 years out of your life from your early 20s to your early 30s to make your mark on this world, whether it be through activism, whether it be through running for office, whether it be through broadcasting, journalism, public speaking, whatever you can do, and make it a little bit better. You have 1 billion people all think the same way. The world looks completely different in 5 years, let alone 10. It's because of the way technology is now. The world looks different in 5 years. So,
and they may, and you just may not have been told that anybody else besides you feels that way.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot. I mean,
I'd like to touch real quickly on the Unity for Jay.
Definitely. Oh, but before we do that, really quick, what's your take on this whole McCain's a hero because of Vietnam situation?
Again, I'm trying to stay in as close to being objective as I can.
The fact that you have to start your conversation out with lets me know how you feel about it. I just want you to know that.
Well, it makes me feel like I'm a coward for not addressing it better, because part of objective means evidence-based. It doesn't mean neutrality. And we've touched on this before, and it's something we need to keep coming back to, that artificially journalism got changed, and basically over broadcasting, because they were owned by the public airwaves. Then we have to have fairness doctrine. And fairness, quote unquote, replaced objective reporting, meaning fact-based, which is what WikiLeaks is doing. Yeah. WikiLeaks is all about objective. Here is the primary source. Has anybody ever said that's not right? No. But they have.
We don't have that much time, so I do want to go to the Unity for Jay movement, but I really want to hear your opinion about, because you were around.
I ducked. I'm sorry. I ducked.
It's fine. You were around.
I suggest people use their search engine. Let me try this objectively. Use your search engine and put in McCain's name and Songbird, and look at what some fellow veterans. Let me start with, I'm really uncomfortable talking about a veteran service record, because I'm not a veteran. I have no standing here as far as what did he do, what did he not do. You, on the other hand, as an 82nd Airborne survivor,
18.
You do have standing. Okay, sorry. Yeah. My history is off again.
We used to be 82nd. That's
okay. Well, you can address this more comfortably than I can, and please do. But I do suggest you look at what his fellow vets who were there, some of them in the Hanoi Hilton, what they're saying was going on, and
the real situation. Not
make their own decision. That's what I'm trying to get to. Use the sources.
He's so
the admiral's son. Yeah.
He's so brave because he was somebody's son and they didn't turn him over. He stayed. I'm like, so because he didn't exercise a ridiculous amount of, like, the fact that the admiral would only pull strings because it is his son is kind of like, there's nothing heroic about that.
There are those who would say that's not the first time either. When the Forrestal caught fire, he's also supposed to be a hero for that. Please use your search engine and look at the Forrestal fire.
But
one of many.
I'm a veteran.
Yes.
And I will tell you very proudly, just because you got caught by a militia, not even the Vietnamese army, but a militia in a village that you destroyed that was full of innocent people, that makes you a hero.
That's every
people
every flyboy's horror right there. Is you just bomb their place and then you end up coming down right in the middle of them, and you know what? They're not happy.
Then what's your excuse? What's legitimate?
Well, if he could say it was a legal war, for whatever that means, that might be different than they called us, and possibly rightly so, air pirates, because it was an illegal war.
Yeah, it was an illegal war, and we were using chemicals that we should not have been using. It was a testing ground to see what we could get away with. And like the Agent Orange that we used on Vietnam ended up being the anthrax. Anthrax was an altered version of Agent Orange that, ironically enough, Saddam used against us because we gave it to him to use against Iran. So it's just the war was not legitimate. And then the fact that you decided to become an officer in it, like you had a choice because you did have
correct,
you did have security. You
correct.
You could have chose to fight against it, but you joined
or surrender your commission. UCMJ says surrender your commission and report back to the ranks. If you're taking an illegal order, the lowest ranking officer by UCMJ, somebody better look that up. I can't remember. But as an enlisted man, you can't just say no.
No, so if you're no, actually, I lied. That changed after that incident that happened in Vietnam. Oh my God, I feel so bad, Kyle. I should know this. Remember the incident where the officer ordered them to like shoot up a village?
My Lai, probably.
Yep.
Well, there's the hidden history again, the revisionist history. That My Lai incident was part of an overall program called, use your search engine, Phoenix program. Phoenix program didn't stop during Vietnam by any stretch of the imagination.
And
we took it to South America. We took it to where we're at in the Middle East. It is an assassination program. When all else fails, counterintelligence goes to assassination.
By the way, most of the military, the people who actually are on the ground, the people who are, it's like we have working class military citizens, just like you have working class Americans, and then there are elite military citizens, just like there are elite Americans. Most of them feel like absolute trash for even being connected to the military because of incidents like that. Like we don't do that. That's not what we joined to do. That's not the lie that most of us.
It's not defense. It's Department of Defense, not Department of Offense. Make a long story short, there is a difference between the two.
The U.S. does. Whenever the bill comes out and it says this is the Non-Discrimination Act, there's going to be a lot of discrimination in that.
It's interesting that you mentioned when we first started, kind of tried to tie us back up to McCain, and then